in their summer break, and God willing, we'll have you. It'll give a nice, refreshing, and reviving spirit to our group here, which is a blessing. So I'm hoping you can tell your friends too. I know Abu Yohanna will also mention this to all the seniors as every year. I think this is the permitted time, right, Abuna? Right when the summer starts, you're admitted and received now, and inducted into this group, which is exciting for us because it's good to have all the youth of our church in the different groups that are meant for them. So this is your meeting, and God willing, you feel this way, and we can grow together in the upcoming years, God willing. We're starting a series called the Orthodox Prayer Life. So if you missed the first one, I think there'll be a recording or a copy of it online somewhere. I really do it for people that want to just look back, or if people can't be here, they say, why didn't you put it on? So that's why we're doing that. So this is the second lecture of a series on Orthodox prayer life. It's based off of a book. I had introduced the book last time. And so this is a continuation of it. This is really like the second chapter of the book. Even if you start here, it's still okay. It's not like you needed the previous chapter to understand this part. So today we're going to be talking about degrees of prayer. So what we just did right now is the book of hours, the Agbeya. We're all familiar with the Agbeya. And if you go to a father of confession, or if you go to a spiritual father, most of the time, or oftentimes, what they will say is, do you pray? They ask you the question, do you have a prayer life? And oftentimes they're referring to the book of hours or the Psalms. And then if you grow in the prayer life, then you'll see some of these things that we'll be talking about today. Oftentimes we stop or have a hard time even beginning this first step. We call this the first degree, the first level of prayer. It's called the audible prayer. The audible prayer or the outward prayer. So anything like the Agbeya or the songs or the hymns of the church that we do in the church or at home, private or public, this is a form of this first degree of prayer. So this is what's mentioned here. It says in the book, it is not easy to divide prayers into separate degrees. It's not a natural thing to say there's degrees or levels of prayer. So that's the first thing. But if you were to be like systematic about it and dissect this a little bit, there are levels and degrees of prayer, for they are united by strong bonds. So you can't just say, if we get into other levels or degrees of prayer, has nothing to do with this first step of prayer. So we need the foundation. We need to keep the rule of prayer. We need to keep our discipline of prayer, which is the Agbeya, or any private prayers that we do as a foundation. And it's not easy to separate it from these other degrees or other levels of prayer that will, God willing, enter into. Nevertheless, it is possible to classify prayer into what? Two types, vocal and mental prayer. Vocal, just like I said, outward prayer, vocal prayer. The other type of prayer is what we say mental prayer or silent prayer. And that's something that's called meditation or contemplation. So we know that prayers also are on the interior level. They're not just like outwardly spoken. It's also how we think and how we feel and how we meditate and contemplate things, that this is considered the other kind of prayer, which is mental prayer. From this division, prayer falls into three degrees, into three levels. So the next level is what we call meditation. A lot of times, this word is sort of hijacked by Eastern spirituality, right? You've heard people that practice, say, yoga, or they're Buddhists. They typically what? Meditate. But actually, the practice is something more ancient. I'll tell you just how maybe Buddhists meditate, and you tell me what you think. I was watching something on this before. It was an educational movie about like prayer and meditation and things like that. And they were saying that in Buddhism, there's many books. They have many books, but their tradition and their practice of meditation is not to the book, because they believe the book or the words will be what? A distraction. So what do they do? They meditate on the creaking noise of the books. Their goal for prayer or meditation is utter silence. So this definition of meditation is very different than what? Christian meditation. Because Christian meditation actually comes from a Latin phrase, lectio divina. Lectio divina meaning you read something and then you start to meditate on it. So can we talk about this for a little bit? What do I mean by that? How do Christians meditate? Based off of the definition of you read something and then you pray about it. Can you give me an example? What do I mean if I'm asking this question to someone? Okay, you pray, great, but now you might want to meditate. Christian meditation. How do Christians meditate? How would you do that? Anyone? I just said it, but you might want to go deeper. Yeah, Lorraine.
But you read something, but then you contemplate on it, you think about it, you think about what it means, you think about it, how it applies to you.
Yeah, exactly. So you read something like a theme or a spiritual concept and you reflect deeply on it and you want to see how it could be practiced, how it could apply. You have a theme from this reading or this source that's from God, and you start to stimulate some sort of prayerful um, program out of it. And we could be very specific about it. Like, imagine you read one of the passages in the Bible that are focused on purity, for example, and you did that because that's something you're working on, right? So you're taking your desire, your spiritual desire, into the Bible. You find passages in the Bible that have that theme. You read that, and then you start what? Putting the Bible down, and you start saying stuff about this theme. You start like reflecting on it. You measure yourself to the scripture and you see, do I measure up to this? And then you might have a thought like, which saints were holy in this way? And then you might go into a certain hymn that you like, and you're just singing it in your mind that makes you feel or think of purity, and so on. So now your heart has a theme. My heart is filled with what? A good theme. And now I'm meditating in a Christian way. I may even go into some silence, but that's not the goal. That's not the goal, just to stay quiet. So the second degree of meditation is sometimes called inward prayer, as it issues from the depths of one's heart. In this degree of prayer, it is shared by the mind and the heart. So what my mind and my heart are experiencing and feeling, that's meditation, and it's linked through feelings. It's linked through the desire. Okay, so we have feelings, we have emotions, we have thoughts. This is all in the realm of meditation. It may sometimes be expressed in a few words, but usually it is offered in silence and quietude. This could be defined as a dialogue with God, and in this dialogue, man recalls some of God's works in his creation. He lays bare the condition of his soul before God. He reveals to God his true self, his identity. In many ways, when we're meditating, we're sort of before God, exposed and revealed. You're not like hiding. You're not there to cover up per se. You're there to actually expose. So when you're meditating, you're actually standing in front of God like this naked, like in a spiritually naked way, right? And it may feel uncomfortable. It may feel awkward. It may feel confusing. It might elicit so many emotions and feelings. And ultimately, it's not to be ashamed or guilty, but to be what? Renewed and reconnected and finding inspiration and guidance and encouragement and peace and joy, so much so that you can carry it out of the prayer or the meditation and practice and apply it in your life. So that's meditation. That's a second degree of prayer. And a lot of times we do the prayer as a checkbox. We do the psalms that we're told. Abuna told me, do 3-4 psalms in the morning or at night or whatever your prayer rule is. But we never get to maybe this level because it takes time to actually get there. Almost like the vocal prayer is like the warm-up. Like, you know what we just did right now? What did we do? We did the Igbeya. It was sort of like considered the warm-up to what? the talk. Why? Because we have to get spiritually moving before we go into the depths of prayer. We can't just jump right in because it's sometimes too too hot too fast, or it's too intense too quick. We have to warm up and we have to wind down as well. It's a lot like athleticism. It's a lot like exercising. We have to do stretches, we have to warm up, we have to move, and then we have to start intensifying gradually. So after we get to this second degree of prayer, we enter something called contemplation. Contemplation comes from a Greek word, theoria. Theoria sounds a lot like something you're familiar with as a student. What do we call things in school? A theory, theoria. But theoria means that I have a contemplation or a insight about God. So real contemplation is something that is so focused. Right here it says prayer is a mode of concentration. This applies to its theme, like focusing on one's prayer on a certain commandment or of one of Christ's evangelistic or redemptive works. But it also applies to man himself. Man would be under a strong influence of love, making his mind extremely alert. All his senses would be controlled and his will focused upon prayer. His heart would also be spiritually ready for receiving any directions from who? The Holy Spirit. So what this means is now I'm in a degree of like submission to God. So now I kind of not just committed to a theme or an idea, but now I'm like in his hand. I am now like a tool in God's hand. I am like a chosen vessel. I'm like now in a completely vulnerable place with God for God to use me in a way that's beyond my capability. So there's something that is mentioned here called acquired and infused contemplation. So within contemplation, there's these two. What is acquired contemplation? Acquired contemplation is the success of acquired contemplation depends on the amount of a man's heart, what a man bears in his heart for Christ. So it also depends on man's readiness to employ all his mental powers in meditating on a particular theme deep in his mind and heart. He should also be in the utmost readiness to accept any spiritual direction. So this is what it means to acquire the acquired contemplation. It's sort of like a synergy. It's sort of like I'm putting myself in a position again to be submissive and used and ready to be um, directed spiritually. Infused is the different one. Contemplation. In infused contemplation, God's heart lovingly welcomes man in return for man's warm feelings of love and prayer. Here, there intervenes a divine factor that pushes prayer out of the confines of the human will and abilities. For this reason, it is rather difficult to term this degree as prayer. We would rather call it the gift of prayer or the grace of prayer. What this means is no matter what, at the end, it's not just what we do or the part that we try to contribute, but rather God can bypass your ability in prayer sometimes. And this is sometimes what people think is for the saints. They think sometimes we make this mistake and think this is only for saints to get to a degree or a level of prayer where they are now experiencing something that's beyond words or beyond like what we would think prayer is. So that's why we have to focus on this word grace. What is the word grace? Free gift, right? So when I think with you right now and I say to you, like, what do you think about this level of prayer? Can you say, for example, this person prayed so much that God felt that they were so deserving that he let them see something special, or used their prayer life to make a miracle or something like that? Do you think it's something earned, or do you think that's also partially true, or also it could be that God just gifted this person with that ability? What do you think? Do you think that it's just like the harder you work in prayer, the more results you'll have? Or do you think there could be times where it's just you have a grace sometimes? What do you think? Yeah. So you're saying it's like a combination. So it's like what we said before, acquired. It's like a synergy. But can we agree that sometimes things can happen even if I show very little effort? Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is the one that confuses us the most, because a lot of times we think we need to do something we have to earn something, or we deserve something. But this could also be a spiritual trap, right? Imagine you think, or I think, or anyone thinks that if I just pray more, it's just going to get better. And then if it works that way, then you think you've earned something, you've deserved you. But also it could work the opposite way, to think, oh, so now I don't have to pray. It seems like God's giving away handouts these days, free gifts, right? So don't get this mixed up either. It doesn't mean that because it could work both ways that we should then fall into this trap of thinking I have to muscle my way through, or I could just sit put and do nothing and it's all going to work out at the end. You see, it can go some ways where we feel like we offered such a little prayer and we were so broken and so hurt and we didn't have energy, but that prayer can do a miracle. And maybe we won't see that miracle. And there could be a time where we pray the whole Agbeya and we think the miracle is going to happen. Do you get what I'm saying? Is this true? I think it's true. I think I've seen this happen quite a few times in my short life. But experience will tell us the same thing. Experience will tell us. I don't think Maximus and Demedios were praying together and say, just wait 1 second, my hands are going to light up right now. I don't think so. I think he was carried away by the Spirit and God worked. The grace of God worked. You see what I'm saying? When we read these stories of the saints, it throws us off sometimes. It's like we think maybe we have to be like Emba Bishoy and we have to tie our hair to a cord. And if my head falls down and I'm falling asleep and I doze off, this is what's going to please God. This is what prayer is. For him, maybe. Maybe that's the struggle. But that doesn't mean that if I struggle this much, that I deserve this much. That's up to God to decide. Do you see what I'm saying? So achieving contemplation, achieving this degree of prayer is a grace. It's a gift. So it says in the book, he might be qualified for all other virtues, whether they are purity, asceticism, humility, or constant prayer. But still, that does not qualify him for infused contemplation, what we just said. Doesn't qualify that person for the synergistic kind of contemplation. God opening his heart in love towards the human soul surpasses all other virtues. Yet this does not mean that the stage of infused contemplation is a miracle. It is a grace. That's what I was saying. So a lot of times we think if we could pray a certain way, that's a miracle, right? But what he's saying here, no, this is a gift. It's a grace from God. It's not, we shouldn't consider these things miraculous. There are things that are miraculous that we could say are miraculous, but this should be a normal thing if it happens. Okay? Philo, go ahead.
How do you receive this gift? Or how do you receive this grace?
We don't know when it comes or when it goes. So visitation of grace is like one of those things that's called a surprise. So you don't sit there and anticipate it or forecast or plan, oh, it's coming. You don't know. It's a surprise. It could happen regularly, it could happen seldomly, it could never happen. Do you get what I'm saying? It's a grace, it's a gift. You see? So we may think, what's wrong if I'm not experiencing this? Is something wrong? The answer is no. Or if it's happening all the time, is something, does that make me like a saint? The answer is also no. Do you get what I'm saying? I know this is confusing because we think if someone is going through a massive amount of grace, this must mean this is like, but that's not always true. Yeah, so
What would be the purpose of this kind of contemplation? Like we know that prayers in general is communication.
yeah.
meditation is deeper communication.
Mhm.
And I'm struggling a little bit to understand the difference between meditation and contemplation.
Mhm.
I'm struggling to understand why why contemplation in that way, like infused contemplation, will be even considered a level of prayer.
So again, you're right. From the beginning, he said it's hard to even separate these. But if we were to really examine this and look at it closely and dissect it, which is what we're kind of doing now, in theory, that's the mechanism of it. Some of us are not going to need to really break it down like that, and we think more simply about it. And I agree with you that that is the natural way, not to make a distinction between these. But if we were to, right, because some of us start maybe wanting to learn more about how prayer works. You know, a lot of times we feel that way about anything that we're looking at. Like, why do I need to break it down so much? It's much simpler than this. And I agree. Let's just pray and not worry about the mechanism and the levels and the stages. But also, there is some beauty in stopping a little bit and reflecting on this subject, because this, I think, will guide us more and help us more to understand and discern. Like, we have to discern prayer, by the way. And we're going to get to that because there's a great example that I'm going to get to that is very easy to be not able to understand what we're even praying or how we're praying. And because we're not paying enough attention or putting close examination on what's happening when we're praying. So we have to be very alert and aware of what's happening during prayer. I think a good practice is even to jot down some of your experiences and reveal it to your Father of Confession in prayer. Why? Because sometimes we begin to do certain practices and we don't know the result or the impact or the consequences of such prayer. So I think there is some practical point here that we could take away from this just in general. There's something coming up that I think will get us to see that, but you're right. I I would say that it's not like that all the time, and it doesn't need to be like so technical like that. There you go. Simplifying the 3 degrees of prayer in one verse. So if you want to do one verse to understand this whole thing, I would love for you to take away this one verse from what I'm saying. In simple terms, the first degree of prayer, vocal prayer, can be described as standing before God in fear. Okay? Standing before God in fear. The second is what? Meditation. And this could be considered moving towards God in longing. The third is contemplation, means resting in the arms of God in love. So, what does this look like? Standing in fear of God, step one. So, when you do vocal prayer and you do the Psalms or you sing any hymns or something like that, I want you to think of the theme of what? Standing in the fear of God. I'm respectfully, reverently before God. That's like, that's how you know you're entering into some form of prayer. You know, when we say worship God in fear and trembling, it doesn't mean to be scared of God. It means to be aware of the respect. And trembling means that there's awe. So when we I've mentioned this before, but I think it's important. When we say something is awesome and full of glory, you know, this is a loaded word. It's a strong word. Sometimes we'll use this word for like a hamburger or a slice of pizza. This pizza is awesome. This burger is awesome. But what that means is full of fear and glory. This word is too much for a hamburger. And so or a slice of pizza. But this word is more suitable for what? Prayer and standing before God. But then when we think of fear, we're like, oh, is God like going to punish me? We don't take it like being reverent and respectful. So when something is reverent and respectful, you've entered degree one, level one, vocal prayer. That's what he's saying there. The second step, meditation, is like moving towards God. So like imagine you're just struck with like respect and you're just standing in your place. Now, meditation is like you're running towards God. You're like in pursuit. You're like trying to chase him. You have a desire for God and you're longing and moving towards God. You know, a lot of times we're like with God and we say, "Where are you?" Or like, when are you going to come to me?" But prayer is like, no, I'm coming to God and now I'm running after God. Like God has been running after us the whole time before the prayer. God has been trying to chase us. Like when we think of love, there's always this concept of who is the pursuer and who is the recipient, right? Men usually have the hard task of what? Being the pursuer, right? But it also needs to eventually be what? Reciprocated. But what I'm trying to say is, like with God, we're being chased by God all the time. But when are we going to start chasing God? Right? That's what it means to meditate. It's like I'm longing for God. I'm chasing God now. So, okay, first degree of prayer, vocal prayer, outward prayer, is known as being respectful, fearful. Second one is being what? In meditating state, and it means I'm longing for God, I'm chasing God. And then the third one, contemplation, is I'm resting in God. Imagine two people finding each other, now they are, finally, we could sit and talk, or we could really enjoy our time now. So resting in God. Now, I want you to remember this verse, because if you were to take one thing out of this whole talk, it's this one verse. Everyone knows the verse which says, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and it will be open to you. So each part of that verse is also the three parts of or three levels of prayer. So when we say ask, that's what? Vocal. When we say seek, that's meditation. And when we say knock and it will be open to you, that is contemplation. Can I add one more thing to this triad, this three-step part? So I gave you sort of the sort of illustrations of what it looks like. I gave also the verse of how it looks, right? Ask, seek, and knock. But I want you to also think of this too. First degree of prayer is purification, purifying yourself, right? Like if we were thinking about anything that does a purifying act in life, like practical things, like a air purifier or a water purifier, it takes something so basic and it makes it its true essence. So like water could have impurities in it and you need it to go through a filter. That's purification. Now you could drink the water. Air, yeah, this air could be polluted, but if I put it through an air filter, now it's true essence. So once I enter into this reverent, respectful place with God, it's already purifying and it's setting me up. It's setting me up for the next stage. So once I go from purification, I shift into the next theme, which is meditation, which is what we call it illumination. I'm enlightened. I'm illumined, right? When you get a good thought, when you get good thoughts, when you get good feelings, now you're illumined, you're enlightened. So you go from purification to illumination, and then the third degree is contemplation. Contemplation is knocking and it will be open to you, or finding rest in God. But now the third degree is called perfection. 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 And a lot of us get very confused around this word of perfection. When we say we have degrees of perfection in the spiritual life, what can that mean? Like even in the liturgy, we say, Saint Bishoy, the perfect man, the beloved of our Savior. What does it mean? Was he a perfect man? Like, I thought God was only perfect. But perfection means in God, to some degree, I can achieve a level of perfection. So based off of what I'm capable of and what I know, I can be perfect. Right? Does everyone kind of get this model, this three-step model of prayer, 3 degrees? Vocal, meditative, contemplative, ask, seek, and knock, purification, illumination, perfection. Is this okay? Are we good so far? So now, how do we shift? Like you want to shift, you want to go from this first level to the next level. So how do I go from vocal prayer to meditative prayer? He says, persist in prayer more than in singing the Psalms. Wow, I've never heard that before. And I think that's something very spiritually important when you pray. What does that mean? But do not give up your psalms. So you see here, this is what I was saying earlier. That doesn't mean give up the psalms and now you're going to enter the levels of grace. And no, on the pretext of your meditation, only give it more time for prayer than recital. Because what happens is, what we fall into is what? Recitation, recital. I said my prayers, I said my psalms, but I didn't actually what? Pray. Come on, like everybody, just be honest for a second. You may feel good that you do your prayers, right? But ask yourself a question: did I really pray? And that's a question we all have to face. And that's the bottom line, right? Because if I didn't pray, then what was the point of the recital of these words? While observing the canonical hours, that is the Igbeya, give allowance for prayer, and you will find yourself after a while to be another person. This is from St. Isaac the Syrian. So this is guidance from patristic fathers, from spiritual fathers that were experienced in prayer. This is the kind of guidance they gave their spiritual children. So you probably wouldn't have expected that, right? You wouldn't have expected maybe to hear that. But it's very important to consider this for a moment, right? I think last week I said something also about this point that's so important. Remember the Abuna Rafael example I gave, Abuna Rafael Avamina? Remember I told you I saw him pray for someone and he said, God, do this thing quickly. I was talking to God very plainly. And then I was confused because I've never seen anyone pray to God like so simply and say, like, God, do what I'm asking for quickly, Lord. Right? But then the Psalms say, hear me what? Speedily. Remember how I made a point, and I think this was the lesson learned from it. You have to make the Psalms your own words for it to be what? Prayer. So this man prays because he has a relationship with God. He can be more simple. It's not a disrespect to God. Sometimes we're so impure that what seems disrespectful is actually not disrespectful, but we're poor. We don't understand that this person is related, his relation is so close with God. He's like a friend with God. I'm not saying say to God, hey bro, help me out. He's not your bro. He's not your friend like that. When we say friend with God, it means I have like this close love and respect for God that I can just ask simply. I don't need to be so formal all the time, right? So, according to the patristic tradition, the first degree of meditation begins with the reading of words slowly. And I think this is important too. I mean, I'm guilty of it. How many times do we pray and we're trying to speed through the prayer because I only have what? 10 minutes, or I have 5 minutes, or I need to achieve a certain number of psalms and I need to go at this cadence or this speed, right? So what do I, right? And that's dangerous. Sometimes we have to do what? Slow down. I was talking about Abuna Abraham Samwili this week. He's a very famous saintly contemporary monk. One thing he would always refuse or reject if they were praying Tasbihah, or if they were praying the liturgy, if the deacon started to speed up a little bit, he would get the death stare. And they knew that meant you're praying what? Too fast. I know this is hard to understand sometimes because some people are very spiritual and they pray very fast. But let's worry about ourselves. Sometimes we need to what? Slow down. If we enjoy something, what are we going to do? Take time. Take time because we want to elongate the time and enjoy the time. Right? If you enjoy a meal, you try to slow down. Right? Or you could just be ravagiously eat this food and you enjoy it so much. Both could be a way to do it, but you have to be careful. You have to savor something sometimes because that's probably more normal. Okay, maybe if we speed through things, it's okay, but we still have to be careful. So it says, read the words slowly, relishing them, and repeat them in an audible voice. Again, when you pray or when we pray, it's okay to repeat a certain line many times. I think this will help you so much understand the power and the weight of the words, right? So you're doing like a spiritual what? You know when you read a book and what do? You stop and you underline and you highlight and then you comment. You have to do the same thing in your prayer live when you're praying, like when you're a living being. If you like a spiritual phrase, repeat it many times. Again, on the note of Abuna Abramus Amwili, he loved Emba Tomas the Sayyah. He loved Emba Tomas the Anachorite. And many people didn't know his story. Many people didn't know who he was. So his whole mission and purpose in life was to go around and every time he gave a sermon or a talk, to include something about the life of Saint Thomas the Anachorite. And he would say this all the time. If you find any of his recordings, he would say, "Ala fikra, Amba Tomas Sayyah, the one who wrote his biography was Ambawisa, the disciple of Saint Shenouda, the Archmonite. And these are big fathers in our church. And he said he lived to the age of 130. And he would like say many key points about his life. And so he loved Saint Thomas to the point where when he prayed the liturgy, he would include in the liturgy the name of Emba Thomas. So when he would get to his name, you know, when we say the commemoration of the saints, you say each saint's name one time. Saint Anthony the Great. I like Saint Anthony the Great. Imagine I got to Saint Anthony the Great and said, Saint Anthony the Great, Saint Anthony the Great, Saint Anthony the Great. You'd be like, like what's wrong with you? He would get to Saint Thomas Sayyah and just lose himself. He'd say his name 15, 20 times. Because he's doing a spiritual what? He doesn't, like he's in another world. He's praying, right? So when we pray, we have to go deep. Like we shouldn't be shy. We're with God privately, right? So when you like something, repeat it. Repeat it to the point where you get like exhausted. Why? Because you're basically digging a deep, deep well until you find spiritual water. You're digging deep. You're pressing a mark in your soul that's going to carry into your life. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
It just reminds me, one time when Johanna was telling me to, when I'm saying Our Father, because it's something that we know and we just say quickly, and sometimes we might not be thinking about what we're saying. And he was telling me to like find a part that I feel and put emphasis on it. So like either like repeat it or just say it like with your heart.
Exactly.
You should be saying the whole thing with your heart. But I found it like it helps a lot. It helps you like focus, especially on like what exactly do you want when you're praying, like especially Our Father.
It's excellent advice, and this is exactly what they're saying. This is what the church is teaching, and that's the best way to guide someone to go deeper. And so this is very important. Yes. And especially with the Lord's Prayer, because the Lord's Prayer is one of the most memorized prayers. So we get so spiritually confident, right? Like, look at me, I could say it in really quick. And so you fall into this trap also with other prayers that you've memorized, like maybe Psalm 50, same thing. The Thanksgiving prayer, same thing. Why? Because we've been saying those prayers, so it's easy. So we just kind of say it and we don't understand, or we're flying through it. So it's good like to do that, to slow down and to highlight it and really enjoy a certain part of it. That's why it says here, reiteration here is like rumination. After a while, the words actually becomes one's own words. So these become your own words. I want you to look at this. This is an example of meditation in the lives of the saints. This is the Paradise of the Fathers, known as Wastan al-Ruhban, which is what is recommended for monks to read alongside the Bible. So the monks' reading is always the Bible and then this book. It's called Paradise of the Father. Paradise of the Father is two parts. It's biographies of the saints and then like their sayings. And so this is really very valuable for many of our monks. The compiler here is Palladius, the author of Paradise of the Fathers. That Saint Mark the ascetic, who was 100 years old at the time, recited before him the four Gospels. Can you imagine someone reciting the 4 Gospels from memory. That's what he did. He also says that St. Aaron memorized the 150 Psalms by heart, together with the letter of St. Paul to the Hebrews, the whole book of Isaiah, part of the book of Jeremiah, the Gospel of St. Luke, the book of Proverbs. The traveler Rufinus also saw and bore witness to the like, or this like. Um, why is this being said? Because when we repeat the words and when we savor the words, they become our words, and then we end up saying huge portions of scripture like as if I was saying something from my own experience. Do you see how deep these fathers and these mothers were? Can you imagine? You know, if you enjoy a story and it's a long story, you could almost say huge parts and sections of the story like without any like interruption, right? Can I tell you one thing that one of the youth did once in front of me? I was shocked, and I like thought of this and I couldn't believe it. Everyone know, I'm sure everyone knows the Alexander Hamilton musical on Broadway. You know the soundtrack? I had a youth come up to me, sit with me, and actually do like 6 or 7 tracks by heart. Can you believe that? I'm sure like some of you are like, yeah, it's very catchy and it's so easy. But you know that's how heresy spread too, right? So so you got to take the same approach for God. That's why the church gave us hymns. That's why when you see someone that memorizes the hymns, this is a gift from God to be able to like pay a lot of attention here. Important, and I think this will help us a lot. So you're meditating now. You're in your room and you're meditating. Like you listen to this talk and you're like, I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna pray. Okay, great. Look at what this monk did when he said, I'm gonna start praying. So a monk went to his master in the morning. This is a quick story. And he was sad. So he went to his father of confession in the morning and he was so sad that after a long night that he spent in meditation, he counted the virtues of his fellow monk. Can you imagine this? So you're praying, and remember the theme is like, I don't know, purity or patience or humility or any of the virtues. And you're reading scripture on it, you're meditating on it, you're asking God for it, you're running towards God, you're asking God to illuminate you, and then you get a thought of your brother, the monk, or your sister, the nun, or your friend in soul, or it doesn't matter. And you start thinking of them because they're like that. So you start thinking of them in prayer. And this is what happened to this monk. He went to his father, the abbot or the father of confession. He said, I'm so sad because I counted the virtues of my brother. Can you imagine counting? So he said to his master, Father, I have wasted the night in vain. I wasted my whole time at night praying, sitting the whole night and counting the virtues of brother so-and-so. And I found that they were 30 virtues. He literally had a number. He counted 30 virtues. And I grew sad since I found that I own nothing, not even one virtue of them. So just think with me here. He spent the whole night trying to meditate, and he counted the virtues of his brother. So this is what his father of confession said. The master said, your sadness because your soul is void of the virtues, and your meditation on the virtues of another is better than the what? 30 virtues. Let's just break this down. He's basically saying to him, don't be sad. Why? Just let's think about this. He's basically saying, his spiritual father is saying, don't be sad. Why?
He probably has virtues, but when he compares himself to someone else, like this shows his humility.
Yeah.
And knowing that he doesn't have the virtues.
So he really believed that he had nothing. He really believed it. He was not like acting in front of God. You know what can happen in prayer? Instead of thinking about the virtues of your brother, you could start thinking of what? My own virtues. And other people, and like we think like we're presenting God a resume, and God's going to be like, good job, well done, a good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of your of your Lord, as if like we're waiting for like God to like pay us for our deeds. You know what's even more dangerous, Beth? Some people pray and they're like they're judging people in prayer and they have no clue that they're doing that. So instead of looking at the brother and saying he has virtue, they say, "Oh, this brother is so bad, so sinful. God, help him out. This person here, they're so impatient. God, like help them be patient." Right? And we start our whole prayer becomes about what? Blaming people and judging people and talking to God like we're up here and like, God, like be compassionate towards these people. Like, you see? So now it's judgment or what? Looking at yourself. So what this is perfect. This is perfect way to pray. You see the big lesson here? It's very easy for this to go undetected, by the way. Very easily that you go and you don't understand what these things mean, and it needs the breakdown of a spiritual father. I'm almost done. Yeah.
Just the part you said, there's a fine line between like praying for others and what you're saying, right? So, like, I'm a bit confused here. So
I know.
I'm praying for somebody like for specific things.
Yeah.
And does that mean that I'm like looking like
We could be. Not always. We could be. We could be praying for them in a condescending way. Only you could know that if you examine yourself closely. So, for example, someone's bothering you, and you know it's a weakness, and you talk to God in prayer like in a very like you don't like this person, and you're like, yeah, Rabbini Sadu. Like we talk to God like as if like we know better or we're better. We sometimes we act this way even in prayer, especially if someone wronged us. You know what I mean? That's where we have to be very careful. It's so dangerous. Why? Because we could be deceived in thinking we're praying for someone when we're actually what? Judging them and acting self-righteous on them in prayer. So it's better not to pray for someone if you don't really care about their salvation this way. You see? Yeah.
How do you do without becoming jealous?
So there's something called holy jealousy, and the saints like Saint Anthony did it. He would look to their deeds but not to the person. So I know this is hard to do, but we have to separate people from actions, good or bad. I know it's very hard to do. I know it's really hard because a lot of times we associate it directly with the person. But Pope Shenouda, he used to have a notebook. This is what he used to do. If he saw a mistake in someone, he'd write down the mistake. He wouldn't write down the person. I know that's not easy to do, but that's a great spiritual practice. So let's not wish bad for people or good for people in ways that are not for us to do. Like you get what I'm saying? We're not the bestower and we're not the judge. We kind of have to be in a neutral spot so that we don't fall into this like playing God style of praying, like where we're praying and we feel like we know it all and we've got it all, and only God can know how everything comes together. And we are supposed to be relational beings. We are supposed to know each other, but we should also have a limit. We should also have a boundary where we don't cross it because it's sometimes not ours. So we have to be careful. Like just to be aware of that is that in itself will protect you. Just to be aware of that is huge. That's what they're saying. But if you go unaware of this, you could slip into stuff and not realize that you're doing that. So good question, and I think we should be careful a little bit. By the way, the church in the early church, the liturgy used to be improvised. So the spirit used to move people to say the prayer. It wasn't solidified in a text. Over time, people started يقولوا حاجات not right. So the church is like, yep, stop. The public prayer has to be what? Formalized. You see? So even in your prayers, when you practice prayer privately, you have to do a review of what's going on and you have to solidify it to some degrees. It's not just a freestyle all the time. You see, because you could go off the loose end. There's no boundaries, there's no limits, there's no control, because now I'm going into things that I don't know. All right, I'm almost done here. Just a couple slides. The highest degree of prayers for everybody, as I said, it's not something special only for the saints. I was talking about Maximus and Domedius earlier. A spiritual experience like contemplation is by no means beyond the capacity of an ordinary nature of soul in its normal collected condition. According to the first creation, the soul in its original state can contemplate divine truths when it stands quiet and silent before its maker. It is also normal and natural condition. The soul is not presupposed to be positive or negative. No work is demanded of it to qualify it for receiving the divine truth, except that it should not be preoccupied with things other than God, evils, passions, or trifles. Otherwise, it cannot be receptive to the divine truth. So, the biggest thing is that we should understand it's natural and that we should not be distracted and that it is a gift, it is a grace from God, as we've said this whole time. All right. I want to end with this last one. We all know the Jesus prayer and we all know stillness, but this is a form of contemplation. And there's this point that I want to end with because it kind of makes a full circle with what we said in the beginning. We said prayers are what? Originally, what? Vocal, outward. And then we go to meditation and contemplation. But then after contemplation, we enter something called spiritual ecstasy. We enter into a trance. We enter into something going beyond words. Okay, beyond words. You know how St. Paul was like taken up to the third heaven? You know, if you close your eyes and you stay quiet in liturgy, you might close your eyes in deep prayer and then it's not like you slept. It's not like you're absent. It's like you feel like you were relocated. It can happen. You're not like just doing something that's abnormal here. You're not doing something that requires a substance to do that. This is the result of prayer. Do you get what I'm saying? That's why some people they are looking for something spiritual and they know it exists through other behaviors and other substances, but they can never achieve it spiritually. And I'm going to give you an example of this in a second, but go for it.
This is kind of like the grace of God when you said like the grace of the prayer.
Absolutely. That's what it is. It's like you can't work hard enough. You can't say like, all right, today I'm going to be like, in a different place or realm with God. It's like a gift. Like you don't know how it's going to happen or if it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but it could happen.
So after contemplation, like
It's beyond, yeah.
Vocal, meditation, contemplation. After contemplation, like, do you wait? If it comes, it comes. Do you just like, okay, like, say Jesus' prayer a few times?
Again, this is not the goal. So the goal is not like I'm trying to get to this. Like it's like I said earlier, a surprise. We don't know. And it's not like you're revving an engine and shifting into gears. Like, I got into first and second and third. It's not systematic like that. Like Safwat was trying to say, you'll never know. We'll never know. The point is they're so deeply connected, right, that we could achieve something beyond our understanding at a certain time. We could be like, hold up, I was just on vocal prayer. How did I? You're not going to talk to God like, we're not going to think like that. God's going to be like, it doesn't matter what you broke it down as or whatever, but for us to really dissect it is just to benefit like this a little bit, to understand its mechanism a little bit, but we cannot really just try to take this and go into prayer and say, I'm in degree 1, Lord. I'm in meditation. I'm in contemplate. Where's my vision? It's not going to work like that at all. It's going to be a surprise and it's a grace. We don't know. It's a mystery. We don't know. Okay? But what I'm going to share with you something a little sad, and this is a true story, but it's true. when I was serving in Queens, I served in an area that was very hipster, like Williamsburg, right? All the hipsters, all the you know what that is, right? So all these young hippie people. So I some guy saw me and he was like, "Whoa, man, you're a priest. Can I come to your church?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And we took an appointment. And he was like, he was very versed. He knew everything. Like perfect student, perfect disciple, perfect catechumen. He'll be perfect, right? So he came and we sat down multiple times. This guy knew everything. Great candidate for receiving him into the church. And I was like watching him one time. He attended many liturgies, and he would, I promise you, he'd look up and he's like, doing like moving a certain way. Like this guy was absorbed in the prayer. You're like if you saw me, you'd be like, he's in contemplation right now. So he sat down with me and he goes, "Listen, Father, I really want to be part of the church, but I have to confess something." I said, "Sure." He goes, "Like I'm on some mushrooms, and every time I take these mushrooms and I come here, the heavens open, the heavens and the skies open. Like I see angels and I see God." And I said, "But you're using a stimulus to achieve this. Like it's true. It's a reality." People said, I've seen people do this. They're like, "I knew God because I took a mushroom, or what's this craziness? You needed to take some sort of stimulus or substance or behave a certain way so that you could believe God exists. Didn't God exist before this thing? You know?" So I told him, "I'm sorry to say this, but if you cannot abandon this, we cannot receive you." But he walked away sad. Why? Because this was his God. Right? That's what we have to be honest here. Right? So we could achieve some things. We could do some things with help, but that's not the point. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? So the goal is not to see visions and to see things. And so the first aim of this exercise is to enter a spiritual quietude, which the fathers named the prayer of Hezekiah. Hezekiah is the way, again, and I want to be careful with this because a lot of Eastern spirituality adopted this from us, which is the position you stand in, the position you kneel in, the way you breathe, the frequencies and all this stuff. By the way, this is all sometimes could be very demonic, right? So you have to be very careful with systems and approaches to prayer, all right? Even if you're looking at an icon too much, it could be a problem, okay? So you have to be careful. The whole goal is not to pray with a totally void of any reading, meditation, or singing, or any positive spiritual activity. You enter into just like beyond prayer, and it's a gift. It's not something we are trying to achieve every single moment. All right. So I wanted to end with this because I feel like it's a good place to stop, and it's been going on, like the talk has been going for a while. So I'll open it for questions or comments. But at least now we have an idea of the levels of prayer, and I hope it could apply to your life in a spiritual way, not like in ways to make ourselves feel a certain way about who we are, or how others are, but that we could actually benefit in our prayer. Yeah, Mukhlis.
Uh, when you pray, you're supposed to be in the presence of God.
Mhm.
So sometimes you're trying to push yourself like you're seeing things or how to avoid things like that. Yeah, you want to feel that the spiritual experience, but you could be making it up.
Yeah, you're like just imagining too much, or you're trying so hard that you're just.
But I mean,
You
make
could.
it up with good intention, so you feel like you're in the presence of God.
Yeah.
But and
You have to be very discerning.
you have to be very, and not be. You can be in the presence of God without having any feelings or not feeling, but any visions or.
You reminded me of something that, I mean, as a spiritual father, Abuna Yohana could also help me here, because this is what I feel, and maybe I have to be more careful with it. But some people come to us with a lot of spiritual dreams. They have a lot of dreams and they're holy things. But this can seem good, but it could also be very dangerous. Okay? So we have to be very neutral. We have to be very neutral if we're experiencing things that are not so normal. So that's my advice to a lot of people. I don't know, Buna, what yani, this is a reality I've come across a lot. Sometimes people feel a certain way if they have so many dreams of angels and the saints, and it's something to make you feel happy, of course. But it could be a little dangerous too. Do you agree or disagree? Because can't the devil appear in the form of angels and saints, and how does it come off? Like, how am I taking it? What am I doing with that? What am I Sometimes I have to be neutral about things that seem so good, because then I could fall into pride and delusion.
Sometimes people they pray and they said, I felt the presence of God while I was
Yeah.
praying, which is fine. But I don't want to pray and try to tickle myself into feeling that. Yani that's a fine line that yeah. And that should be okay too. And what I'm saying, yeah, if you pray and you don't feel anything unnatural, but that's okay, but yani that you are in the presence of God. It's a fine line, I guess. That's
Reverence, allow me just very, very, be very, very careful about imagination. God, or Saint Athanasius, when he spoke on the incarnation about the strength and the capability that God created humans to be capable of thinking is different than imagining. Thinking of God and being in the presence of God is an action of the human mind. It has its own limitation and it is not emotional and it is not imagination. Let me explain one. Imagination, I imagine now, I could close my eyes, I imagine myself, I'm walking by the seashore and my feet is touching the water of the ocean, and I remember from the memory some smell of the sea or of whatever it is. This is imagination, okay? But in spirituality, it is far, far, far beyond anything of this, and this is not a spiritual thing. This is not. This is an imagination. The mind has this ability, yes, ability to think and to gather from the brain and the memories in the brain and tie out of it a kind of scenarios that I could be in that kind of situation. Yes, this is an ability that the brain has. Again, imagination is a very dangerous feeling if you close your eye and imagine that you are in front of God like a human being in front of you, or like even a crucifix in front of you, that you are imagining yourself in front of an icon of Christ is not right. This is not spiritual. This is imagination, a power of mind that we could have. It's not wrong, but it is not what we mean by having yourself in the presence of God. Reality of the presence of God, Anthony Bloom, in the beginning to pray, he described that this is a reality. You enter into the presence of God. This is a reality to feel it or not. Feeling is from a human feeling. It's not at all describing a reality. It's a feeling. How many times you feel that you are sick and you're not sick? Or how many times you feel that you have fever and you don't have fever? How many times you feel that you love and you don't really know if you love or not? My point is, human feelings under the category of a human feeling. Okay? Human imagination under the category of human imagination. The reality of the presence of God, you enter into His presence. He does not come to you because you are asking Him, God, please come. I want to feel your presence. This is a feeling. the feeling could be true or could be false. Do you understand something? Does it really, when you say, I don't feel that God is with me in the room now, does it deny the reality that God is there? It is everywhere. Okay? So the presence of God, the belief that God is there has to be surpasses. It has to surpass any kind of human feeling or thinking. Okay? But the thinking of me feels you are putting God under your human feelings, and this is not minimizing. This is yeah, it ruins the idea that I put God under my senses. معرفش المخ is it just the point of feelings. Feelings are important in your prayer, absolutely yes. يعني we want, أنا عارف إن I'm contradicting all what I'm saying, but I'll tell you exactly at the end what I mean. As a human being, definitely I need to feel, but it is not, as Abu Anthony and St. Abraham the Syrian insisted a lot about the levels of prayer that could start by reading or hearing, it could go to thinking, and the third level is going to the heart. Going to the heart is by the grace of God, to feel every word you say, to contemplate all the time whenever you open the book of prayer, and to contemplate, to feel that you're really, really enjoying every word and you don't want your prayer to end. I don't know. This is again above my level, but I'm just saying don't be discouraged of some of the levels that Abuna Entry spoke about. It is maybe far from our level. It's okay. It's far from my level too. But I'm just saying that don't be discouraged. Again, God is a reality. When I go my room tonight and I want to pray, I enter into His presence. طبعا معلش put it into quotation كده هو is God really in His presence, in the air particles, in the icon, or He is there by His strength. Again, because Saint Athanasius again, he said God is in His creation by His power, not by His essence. And this is why we don't worship a tree, because it is created by God. So God is in the tree? No. God is in the tree by His power, not by His essence. His essence is away from all the creation, but His presence is in every particle of His creation. I know that I'm confusing you, معلش. Forgive me, بس عشان ديت is very important to understand.
So the imagination of Bona is human, and it's limiting from the reality of who God is in His power.
Yes, yes. But having good feelings also is good. It's good to have not good feelings. I mean, having a feeling that comes with the prayer, feeling of peace, it has to be. Feeling of really, I enjoy this is what's supposed to be every prayer to reach that level because your eyes, the eyes of your heart, was open to the reality of the presence of God, not the eye of yeah, of your eyes, not the sight of your eyes.
Mm.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So would it be fair to say that um, the vocal prayer and the meditation is something that we should do on daily basis, strive for practice, and then if God gives us the grace to go to the next level, then this is where we need to be careful because this is where things
Yeah.
can be kind of beyond the nature.
Yeah. I think that's where you have to run to the Father of Confession and just reveal your prayer life, because it's very easy to imagine things, or and I'm guilty of this too. I've made this mistake. It's easy to make this mistake. So we have to be very careful. This is out of love for you, not out of like putting you down, or no. I don't want you to feel like if you're having these things and they're authenticated, God bless you. Listen to Abuna, that's your Father of Confession, and be simple about it. We're not all on the same page here. You know, uh, this is fair to say. But I think we all should hear something general about it now, because we usually say pray, 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 but like, what do we mean? Yani, it's very common for people to say, I'm praying, I'm praying. What do you mean you're praying? So it's good to break it down a little bit, just for the purpose of actually, we're not we're not studying it. We thought the squirrel was coming through the. I was imagining some things, um, but that was a reality. Um, um, but I think this is out of spiritual caution. It's not about doing anything other. We're not trying to study it. This is not a study. You don't. From the beginning of the book, this is very silly to even talk about like as a subject, because it's not a subject, and it's not a book to read like that. This is real experience from a spiritual father that was really pressed to say something about prayer, and it came out. But this is really guidance for how to pray. It's really like to take it and bring it to your spiritual life and do something with it. Not so much to break it down and study it.
I think it's really like the lesson that I took, in addition to just learning about the different levels when it comes to prayer, is that um, meditation is a necessity. Like just the vocal prayers
Mhm.
may may not necessarily give me the spiritual growth that I need. I need to actually like feel the words and dig deep and talk to God about them, and
Mhm.
this is where I need to go.
Mhm. Yeah, we all. That's why it was saying in this chapter, it's for everybody. It's not exclusive for certain levels of people. Like that is for everybody. Visions and all this other stuff, that's not for everybody.
I remember two things. I'm sorry.
No, please, when I need help here, because I have no experience in this.
أنا بس بقول I remember a story about Saint Aaron the Syrian. Many of the times that he enters to the liturgy, once he enters to the church, he goes into a kind of vision,
Mm.
and it mentioned that he sometimes loses the communion because he is seeing God. Once he enters the church, he is in the presence of God, and he is in a kind of heartily absorbed in the presence of God, and he feels that it was like a second. And then the liturgy ends, and he's so this is one thing.
And he missed
He
communion,
missed
or
communion. He
yeah.
said that happens many times that he feel that he is not in the body. He's shaking and again the story of Ambashoy that every night I mean Ambarsanius, that every night he looks at the east. So he's looking at the east from the sunset time, and then he wakes up next morning just by the sun bothering him in his eyes in the early morning. So he says, is this our level that we are taken out of the time?